Thought I was invited to a family big party celebration. Then the restaurant host said I was banned. I always thought family was supposed to support you, even when things got tough. But what happened last Saturday night made me realize some families are just waiting for a chance to tear you down. My name's Tyler, and I grew up feeling like I was the black sheep, maybe even broken. I dropped out of college when I was 20 after years of panic attacks and feeling invisible. My parents never took it seriously. Meanwhile, my brother Brandon and sister Madison were the golden kids with fancy degrees and careers I could only dream of. After I left school, I moved 3 states away, taught myself graphic design and photography, and slowly built a decent career. I even bought my own apartment. But I never told my family. Every holiday, their snide remarks about my hobby and wasting time made me keep my success hidden. They had decided who I was long ago, and no amount of proof could change their minds. Then last week, I got this formal invitation in the mail. It was for my cousin Carter's celebration at this upscale restaurant called the Lantern Room. My family never does anything like that, so something fell off. But a small, stubborn part of me wanted to be included, so I RSVP'd yes. I even bought a suit and a nice card. I drove 5 hours to get there, heart pounding, trying to believe maybe this was a fresh start. But when I gave my name at the door, the host looked confused, then shook his head and told me I was banned from the event. I was standing there stunned when I glanced through the window and saw my entire family inside, laughing, toasting, having a great time. Everyone, aunts, uncles, cousins, even my brother and sister. Before I could understand what was happening, my mom stormed out, recording me on her phone, shouting loud enough for the whole restaurant to hear. Look who crawled out of his hole. Practiced your speech while begging for change. Every head turned. The room went dead silent. Then my dad followed, face red with rage, yelling, 32 years of nothing. Proof evolution can go backwards. He gestured at me like I was some sideshow attraction. My sister grabbed a waiter's phone and started filming, shouting, the family's genetic disaster. His shoes held together with grocery bags and prayers. I was wearing expensive Italian leather shoes, but no one cared. My brother grabbed the microphone, holding a cheap card, probably stolen. Still think your worthless existence matters here? He sneered to the entire dining room. The waiters just froze, and the manager tried to calm things down. Then my grandfather shuffled out, pounding his cane on the floor. I was the stain on our family. They should have left me at the hospital. My uncle joined in. Even rats have more dignity than this walking failure. One by one, every family member took turns tearing me down in front of dozens of strangers. This wasn't a spur-of-the-moment attack. It was planned. The party was just a trap to humiliate me publicly. The host was told not to let me in. People in the restaurant were filming everything. Some looked horrified. Others couldn't look away. The manager called security. But as I stood there, something inside me shifted. I wasn't angry anymore. I was cold, calm. I smiled, and the shouting faltered because they didn't expect that. What they didn't know was that 6 months ago, I bought a significant stake in the restaurant group that owns the Lantern Room. Not because I planned this, just because I had the money and saw an opportunity. I pulled 2 sealed envelopes from my jacket and handed one to the manager and the other to my father. He snatched it like it was garbage. Without a word, I turned and walked out. That night, I sat on my balcony staring at the city lights, feeling free for the first time in years. The first envelope banned every member of my family from all the restaurant group's properties, 14 upscale places across the city. The second contained a detailed account of every loan and favor I'd ever given them, totaling over $170,000, with demands for repayment or legal action. When I turned on my phone the next morning, it exploded with missed calls and texts. They weren't sorry, they were scared. Scared of the power they'd ignored for too long. I'm done being their punching bag. I kept records of every loan, every favor, every time they used my credit or begged for help. Now, they'll finally see exactly how much they've depended on me. The moment I handed those envelopes to the manager and my father, everything shifted in a way I hadn't expected. I left the restaurant without looking back, but inside I felt a strange calmness, like I had finally taken control of a story that had been written for me by others for far too long. The rest of the night, I sat alone in my apartment, the city lights flickering through the window, thinking about what I had just done and what was about to unfold. By the time I woke up the next morning, my phone was buried under an avalanche of missed calls and messages. Over 70 missed calls and nearly 50 texts. Most were from my family, desperate, angry, confused, and above all, scared. They weren't sorry for what they had done, but but they suddenly realized the power I held and the consequences they were facing. I didn't answer any of them. I knew this was their wake-up call. The first message I read was from my mother. She wrote long paragraphs trying to justify their actions, saying it was tough love and that they were only trying to make me see the truth about my wasted life. I laughed to myself because it was the same nonsense they'd been feeding me for years, just dressed up in guilt and regret now that things were turning against them. My sister's texts were a mix of frustration and fear. She started by calling me childish and petty, then begged for a calm conversation, and finally admitted she didn't have the money to pay me back right now. Brandon, my brother, just sent WTF over and over before trying to switch to pleading for a meeting to discuss payment plans. I ignored them all. Instead, I contacted my lawyer and told her to handle all future communications. It was the smartest investment I'd made in years. $500 an hour that was worth every cent. Letting her be the bad cop took the emotional weight off me, and it gave my family a clear message. This was serious, and I wasn't backing down. Tuesday morning was when things got really interesting. My dad showed up unannounced at my loft, looking disheveled and exhausted, like he hadn't slept in days. I'd never given him my address, so I was shocked he found me. When the doorman called to warn me, I told him not to let my father in under any circumstances. 20 minutes later, I was walking down the elevator to meet him in the lobby. My dad looked like a man on the edge. His face was red and sweaty, his eyes wild. He tried to force his way into the elevator with me, sticking his hand between the closing doors to stop them. Then he started shouting, accusing me of destroying the family, being petty and vindictive, and saying that what I was doing wasn't what family should do to each other. I looked him in the eyes and told him public humiliation isn't what family does either. That didn't stop him from lunging for my arm. I jerked away and warned him that if he touched me again, I'd call the police and press assault charges. The look on his face when he realized I meant it was worth everything I'd gone through. The doorman finally stepped in, telling my dad to leave or security would be called. As the elevator doors closed between us, my dad shouted that I'd regret this, that I was nothing without the family, and that I'd come crawling back when I realized how alone I was. I stood there with shaking hands, but for the first time in my life, I felt less alone than ever. That same evening, my mother tried a different tactic. She showed up at my building, makeup smeared, tears streaming down her face, telling the doorman it was a family emergency. I told him not to let her up. When she called me 10 minutes later, I almost didn't answer, but curiosity won out. Her voice was broken with sobs as she pleaded, saying they didn't understand why I was doing this, how they'd always supported me, and just wanted me to reach my potential. I laughed, a genuine laugh. I asked if humiliating me in front of strangers was her idea of support, and if telling me I was worthless for 15 years was how they helped me reach my potential. She changed her tone quickly, apologizing if I'd been hurt by their joke, but insisting I was taking things too far. She said my dad's business might collapse if he had to pay me back now, and that my sister might lose her condo. She said I was destroying the family over a misunderstanding. I told her it wasn't a misunderstanding. It was years of being treated like garbage while simultaneously being used as an ATM. That restaurant incident was the final straw. Then I hung up without another word. The next day, I got an email from my cousin Carter, the same cousin whose celebration was the trap. He said he had no idea what the family was planning, that they told him it was a surprise birthday party months away, and that he felt terrible about what happened. He wanted to meet me for coffee to talk. I wasn't sure whether to believe him or think it was a ploy. Either way, I told him I'd think about it. Later, my lawyer informed me that Brandon had contacted her office, trying to negotiate a payment plan. Apparently, his wife found out about gambling debts, and he was facing divorce if he couldn't prove he was handling his finances. My sister called too, arguing that the money she took was a gift, not a loan, despite the texts where she promised repayment. The whole thing was unraveling, and they were starting to panic. I felt no sympathy. That Friday night, I was at a bar when an unknown number called me. Usually, I wouldn't answer, but I'd had a long week and a couple drinks, so I picked up. It was Aunt Lisa, my mother's sister, and the only one who ever showed me any kindness. She told me something I never knew, that when I was born, doctors suspected I might have developmental issues, but those were never serious, just cautious warnings. My father had decided I was defective from the start, favoring Brandon and Madison with everything while treating me like a mistake. My mom went along with it, scared of my dad. Hearing this explained so much. It wasn't just me being lazy or weird. It was years of being written off before I could even speak. Lisa said she couldn't stay silent anymore, and gave me copies of emails showing my dad undermining me to teachers and family friends, spreading the lie that I was broken. I'm sharing all this now because it's been exactly a week since the restaurant night. The ban on my family at the restaurants is still in place, and none of them have signed the repayment agreements. My lawyer says the legal process will continue, and I'm ready for whatever comes next. I'm done being their punching bag. For the first time, I'm standing up for myself, and I won't stop until I'm treated with the respect I deserve. Since I sent those envelopes and set the legal wheels in motion, everything in my family has been falling apart like a house of cards in a storm. Brandon's been the first to crack. His wife found out about the gambling debts he tried to hide, and now they're on the brink of divorce. He's barely managing to keep his medical license, and the stress has turned him into someone I barely recognize. When he called my lawyer to try negotiating a payment plan, I didn't hesitate to refuse any deal that wasn't full repayment. This isn't about money anymore. It's about accountability. My sister Madison's situation is no better. She's been put on administrative leave from her law firm after word spread that she was banned from every upscale restaurant in town. Apparently, the firm has a strict moral clause, and her association with the family scandal is threatening her chance at partnership. I never thought I'd feel satisfaction over someone's career troubles, but after years of her mocking me, I'm only human. She even tried to claim the money she borrowed was a gift, but I have every text proving otherwise. It's hard to watch her scramble now, but she brought this on herself. My dad's business partner, Kevin, reached out to me out of the blue last week. He looked exhausted and beaten down, explaining that Roger's been lying to him for years about their company finances. Kevin showed me proof that my dad took out a secret second mortgage, borrowed money from the business without permission, and hid losses in shady investments. This isn't just family drama anymore. It's corporate fraud. Kevin begged me for any records I had that could help him save the business. I handed over everything. It felt strange siding with someone against my own father, but honesty hasn't been part of his playbook for decades. The family itself has splintered into factions. Some of the younger cousins and a few aunts and uncles are quietly distancing themselves from my parents and siblings. They've told me they've always felt uncomfortable with how I was treated, but never spoke up. Others, mostly older relatives and those financially dependent on my parents, remain fiercely loyal to them, blaming me for tearing the family apart. This divide only makes the tension worse whenever we accidentally cross paths at family events, which I'm now mostly avoiding. I've had more than one heated confrontation with my parents. They still try to manipulate me with guilt and threats, but it's lost its grip. When my father showed up at my building again, looking desperate and wild-eyed, I stood firm. He accused me of destroying the family, being petty and vindictive, and promised I'd regret everything. I told him that public humiliation and lies were what broke the family long ago, not me standing up for myself. The doorman had to step in to keep him from coming inside, and I haven't seen him since. My mother has tried every angle to get through to me, including emotional appeals and even showing up at my office unannounced. She cried, begging for 5 minutes to talk and begging me to stop what she called my vindictive campaign. But I remembered her filming me in the restaurant, laughing as they all humiliated me. I told the receptionist to call security, and when my mom was escorted out, she screamed that I was breaking her heart. The elevator doors closed on her tears, and I went back to my desk feeling more resolved than ever. Aunt Lisa, the only relative who has shown me real kindness, came forward with shocking news. She told me about the doctor's early warnings that I might have developmental delays as a baby, which were never serious, but gave my dad the excuse to write me off as defective. She shared emails proving that my father had systematically undermined me to teachers, coaches, and even family friends, painting me as a lost cause. My school records told a different story. I was above average, well-liked, and capable. It was a cruel narrative forced on me by someone who never wanted me to succeed. This new understanding gave me clarity, but also rage. I realized that none of this was about me failing. It was about my father's refusal to accept me for who I am. That toxic belief poisoned every part of my childhood and spilled into the lives of my siblings, who followed his lead without question. Recently, my cousin Carter asked to meet. He insists he had no idea about the family's plan to humiliate me, saying he was told the event was a surprise birthday party for me months away. I'm torn between wanting to believe him and wondering if he's just playing damage control. Regardless, the fact that some family members are trying to distance themselves from this mess gives me hope that not all of them are lost. My brother's legal troubles have worsened. His wife moved out after discovering credit card statements showing he hid the full extent of his debts. I sent her a recording of him publicly mocking me at the restaurant, and she thanked me for the evidence. That night, Brandon's breakdown hit a new low, and he entered rehab. It's hard to feel sympathy, but part of me knows he's fighting a battle far bigger than me. My sister is struggling too. Her law firm's ethics board opened an investigation, and several clients requested different attorneys because of the scandal. She's scared, and I don't blame her. Her career might never recover from this. When I confronted her about the money she owes, she cried and promised she's been saving to repay me, but she was too afraid to face me before. It's a start, but trust won't be rebuilt overnight. Meanwhile, my parents' business continues to crumble. Kevin's uncovered more financial messes and has started distancing himself from my father. The company faces bankruptcy if they don't act fast. My dad's pride blinds him from reality, and he lashes out at everyone, even trying to blame me for his failures. I'm watching it all unfold like a slow-motion train wreck. I've spent countless nights reviewing every document, every text, and every moment of this nightmare, trying to figure out what comes next. My lawyer and I are preparing for the next legal steps. They're scrambling to avoid consequences, but I'm more determined than ever. This isn't just about money anymore. It's about finally getting the justice and respect I was denied for far too long. Even with everything falling apart around them, my parents still refuse to admit fault. They tried sending a partial repayment offer, but I rejected it outright. Their apology has to be complete, and I want a legal agreement to ensure they never contact me again unless it's on my terms. I've set clear boundaries, and I won't let them trample them again. The family meeting my cousin Jacob is organizing feels like a fragile chance to rebuild some bridges. Some relatives have already apologized for how they treated me or stood silent, while others humiliated me. It's strange hearing their words, knowing how long I waited for them. But for now, I'm keeping my guard up. Trust is earned, not given freely after betrayal. Despite all the pain, I'm starting to see a flicker of hope. Some family members are distancing themselves from the toxicity and reaching out with tentative kindness. It's not everything I wanted, but it's enough to remind me that maybe, just maybe, healing is possible. I'm sharing all this here because the support from strangers online has helped me stay grounded. I'm not just the family disappointment anymore. I'm the one rewriting the story, and I'm not done yet. The fallout from everything I did has been nothing short of catastrophic for my family, and honestly, watching it unfold has been both surreal and, at times, difficult to process. My father, Roger, was officially forced out of his company after months of digging uncovered not just poor decisions, but clear embezzlement and fraudulent financial dealings. Kevin, his business partner, presented irrefutable evidence of theft and secret loans taken without consent. This wasn't just about money anymore. It was criminal, and my father's empire crumbled under the weight of his lies. The legal pressure on him grew rapidly after I handed over all the documentation to Kevin. Within weeks, my father found himself not only under investigation by the company's board, but also the subject of formal criminal probes. It felt strange to witness his pride shatter piece by piece, but after everything, I couldn't feel sympathy for someone who'd tried so hard to destroy me. My sister Madison's world started to unravel faster than I expected. After the scandal broke in her law firm, she was put on unpaid administrative leave pending an ethics review. Several clients switched to other attorneys after hearing about her family's public disgrace. I wasn't sure if she'd ever recover professionally, and while I never wished harm on her, years of her ridicule made it hard to feel sorry. Brandon, my older brother, finally admitted he couldn't keep hiding from his problems anymore. His wife moved out after discovering the extent of his debts and deception. The gambling addiction he denied for years came crashing down, and he entered a rehab program under the threat of losing his medical license. I was conflicted. Part of me wanted to hold him accountable, but another part recognized the man beneath the mess was hurting deeply. Their financial situation is dire, and they've started coming to terms with what their recklessness has cost them. Last week, my lawyer received a partial payment offer from my parents, but it was a fraction of what they owed. I refused to negotiate unless they agreed to sign legally binding documents admitting fault, repaying the full amount, and agreeing never to contact me unless it was on my terms. They accepted, but only because they knew this was the only way to avoid a long, ugly court battle. Jacob, my cousin, organized a family meeting to address the chaos, excluding my parents and Brandon, who was still in rehab. It was strange to be surrounded by relatives who mostly kept their distance before, but now seemed genuinely sorry for what had happened. Some apologized outright for joining in the humiliation, others for standing silent. For many, it was the first time admitting their mistakes publicly. During that meeting, I made it clear I was open to rebuilding relationships with those who genuinely wanted respect and honesty. But I told everyone I would never tolerate being the family punching bag again. Trust, I emphasized, had to be earned over time, and no one could expect to pick up where we left off without accountability. Madison pulled me aside afterward, handing me a check for $25,000, the first installment of what she owed me. She said she'd been saving from every paycheck, but fear kept her from facing me before. It was a small but meaningful step, showing me she might finally be ready to make amends. I accepted the payment, but made it clear that forgiveness wasn't automatic. Meanwhile, Kevin, my dad's former business partner, uncovered something that shocked me even more. He found that a trust fund was set up for me at birth, the same as the ones for Brandon and Madison. But shortly after doctors suggested I might need extra help as a baby, my father secretly drained the trust and redirected the funds to my siblings. It was the final proof that my dad's hatred was more than emotional. It was financial sabotage. Knowing that my father stole money meant for me and gave it away to others who were supposed to love and protect me felt like another betrayal. It wasn't just the emotional wounds anymore. It was years of being denied what was rightfully mine. I shared this discovery with my lawyer, and she assured me it strengthened my case immensely. As for my parents, the strain is breaking them apart. My father was admitted to a psychiatric facility after a public meltdown when police were called to remove him from my building. He alternated between fits of rage blaming me for everything and moments of despair admitting his entire life was built on lies. My mother has been staying with her sister, overwhelmed by guilt and fear for the future. Rachel, my sister, recently confessed that she had been trying to protect her career by staying loyal to our father's narrative for years. But now she's questioning everything and facing her own disciplinary hearings at work. Watching her go through this makes me realize how deeply toxic our family's secrets were and how far-reaching the damage has become. Even though the damage is immense, I'm starting to believe that some healing might be possible. It's going to take time, patience, and real change from all of us who want to be part of each other's lives. I don't expect a fairy tale ending, but I want us to stop pretending everything is okay and start being honest. I'm not the same person who left Philadelphia with a camera and a suitcase all those years ago. I'm stronger, more grounded, and ready to live life on my own terms. That means no more hiding from my past or the people who tried to break me. This fight isn't over, but I'm done losing. For now, I'm focused on rebuilding what I can, setting boundaries where needed, and refusing to let the past define my future. And if my family wants to be part of that future, they'll have to meet me halfway, without lies, without shame, and without the cruelty that shaped me for so long. Just when I thought the story had reached its final chapter, the unexpected hit me like a freight train and shattered all my assumptions. Weeks after the family meeting and the partial repayments, I received a letter from Carter, my cousin, the one whose celebration turned out to be a trap. I wasn't sure if I wanted to open it, but curiosity won. His words shook me to my core. Carter confessed he never intended the event to humiliate me. He said my parents forced him into it, blackmailing him with threats to ruin his career if he didn't cooperate. He handed me proof, emails and texts showing my father pressuring him, painting me as a problem to be handled. Carter's voice was raw, full of regret, admitting he wished he had stood up for me. That revelation hit me harder than any insult or betrayal. Knowing that even family members I once trusted were trapped in my father's web made me question everything. But Carter's honesty also opened a door I didn't expect, an ally inside the chaos. Shortly after that, my lawyer called with news that stunned me. She'd uncovered a far deeper level of deceit involving my father. Not only had he stolen my trust fund and embezzled from his business, but he'd also been laundering money through Carter's company, the same cousin who sent me that letter. The situation had become a criminal investigation at the federal level. Agents raided my father's home, seizing documents, computers, and financial records. The scale of the fraud was massive, much larger than any of us had imagined. My father was now facing multiple indictments, and the family's reputation was officially shattered. Watching all of this unfold left me conflicted. I didn't want to see my father destroyed, but I couldn't ignore the years of abuse, lies, and betrayal. This wasn't just justice. It was the reckoning that had been coming for a long time. The man who had tormented me for decades was finally being held accountable. Meanwhile, Carter agreed to cooperate fully with the investigation, helping to expose the entire operation. His decision wasn't easy, and I respected his courage. Despite everything, we began rebuilding a fragile relationship, one based on honesty rather than fear. In the aftermath, my parents' marriage collapsed completely. My mother moved out for good, admitting she couldn't live with the lies and pain anymore. My siblings, broken and ashamed, started to face their own demons. Brandon continued rehab, and Madison fought to save her career. The family was unrecognizable, scattered, and wounded. For me, the victory felt hollow at times. The price of truth was steep, and the family I once knew was gone forever. But amidst the ruins, I found a surprising sense of peace. I was no longer trapped by their judgment or cruelty. I was free to live my life on my own terms. One night, as I sat on my balcony looking out over the city skyline, I received a message from a teenager named Luke. He'd found my story online and was struggling with his own family's rejection. His words reminded me of myself years ago, lost, angry, and desperate for acceptance. I spent hours talking to him, sharing my experiences, my failures, and the lessons I'd learned. For the first time, I felt like I was using my pain to help someone else. Maybe this was the real victory, turning my scars into strength and giving hope to someone else who needed it. As the weeks passed, I started mentoring a few young people facing similar battles. It wasn't glamorous or easy, but it was meaningful. Life had thrown me into a storm, but I was still standing, still fighting, still growing. Looking back, I realized that the worst moments of my life had shaped me into someone stronger and more compassionate. The family I lost was a painful chapter, but it wasn't the whole story. There was still so much ahead, so much to build. And while the scars would never fully fade, I knew I was finally the author of my own story, no longer defined by those who tried to break me, but by the resilience I found within myself. That, more than anything, was worth everything.